I think this tells a sad story
Yes.
of what we are talking about. Like people vote and they think when they've made that cross, that's the end of all things. They are waiting for the next 5 years.
Yeah, but so that's not a crisis of the people, I don't think. Or at least angazi ukuthi ngiyibeke kanjani. For me, that sounds like a crisis of representative democracy as a concept. Right in this country, sisebenzisa representative democracy.
Hi, this is Rase Mishimutlara and welcome back to the show. Kajeku, we have two guests. Measuring from the previous show, Rubilen Nona, and there were people on the floor and the discussions of Rubilen Nona. We're making a follow-up show based on that. The elections are done, people have chosen their leaders, but it's a problem up there. So there are people who are going to come and explain to us how this whole process works moving forward. Kenale Londiwe, most of us know her from the previous show that we had Lena. If you didn't see the show in Lena, just check the link above. It will to the show. Other than that, Nani Noel, he was also here on the last show. Lena, the link is above. And today we are talking subject here moving forward. After voting, where to from now? Sis Londi, Mujan. Yapi. You are more like our dictionary when it comes to this political stuff.
Yes.
So, welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah. Noel, you are back.
Thank
and
you.
Talking the same thing. Continuation. And we have guests on the floor. We'll be getting to that and hear their views. And today, I have a question. After we voted, I don't know if you voted, but at least I did. And then after voting, unfortunately, ANC didn't get the outright majority.
Yeah.
The report is we have a government of national unity. And maybe let's start there. After 30 years, we still need to figure, or at least I still need to figure out how South African politics work. And then what happens from this point on?
Well, so after the results have been announced by the IEC, we have 14 days to constitute a government. So in 14 days or in 2 weeks, we must elect a president, we must elect a speaker, all of those things.
Yeah.
A cabinet must sit.
Yeah.
And so we have 14 days to do that. There are a few options when there is no outright majority.
Okay.
So outright majority basically means 50% plus one.
Yeah.
It is the first time, this is our 7th general election, it's the first time that the ANC didn't get
Outright
50% plus. That's the first thing. At a national level, of course, there's been Western Cape and other places where they didn't. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that the three bigger opposition parties are currently the Democratic Alliance, Economic Freedom Fighters, MK Party.
A new kid on the block.
A new kid on the block. Quite surprising. I think their performance, for me at least on a national level, is quite surprising. But you know, we can talk about why that happened in the way that it did. And then we've got then we start with the smaller parties: Patriotic Alliance, Good, UDM, Rise Mzansi, all of the smaller parties, right? So there were a few proposals before the election.
Okay.
One was a multi-party charter, which was being proposed by the DA, which was basically trying to get all the smaller political parties and all the opposition parties in one camp to then create an outright majority.
Yes.
But that charter would be obviously led by the DA as majority stakeholder in that party, in that charter rather. That was one of the options. The other options are coalitions in terms of Uguti. I've got the 40%, Noel's got the 10%, Mina and I Slangani sense of 50.
Yeah.
Right? Since we've voted, since the election last week, we've had a few speculations about what the marriages of inconvenience could be, or convenience could be. One of the speculations was ANC, DA, IFP. That's on the one side. The other speculation was ANC, MK, EFF. Those have been the two sort of speculations in terms of a coalition government. Either one would take the ANC to a 50 or would give us an outright majority. And I think that's interesting because the DA, as far as I can remember, had clearly said ukuthi bona ngeke beze besebenzisane ne-ANC.
Yes.
Right? They had said ukuthi ngeke ukuthi abantu sebeyikhiphile i-ANC bese bona beyayibuyisela. Right? So that was part of the conversation before the election. And so it's interesting now that the election has happened in the way that it has happened, with the DA not growing on a national level. I think maybe they anticipated that they would grow and would have more sway and more power, and that didn't happen. In fact, I think maybe MK and the Patriotic Alliance may have been, the new kids on the block seem to be the ones who have grown.
Yes.
All the other parties, I think UDM actually is the only old political party that's grown in this election.
Okay. Has grown or hasn't grown?
It has grown. But the thing is that most of the major political parties, if not all, didn't grow or lost votes. You clearly see the EFF being taken over by MK party.
Yes.
So there's one for me that signals ukuthi abantu bakhathele nje with political parties generally, or at least with what we had on the ballot so far, and so they've gone other ways. So those were the options pre-elections. Right now, Izolo, the ANC announced that they would opt for an option of a government of national unity, which is basically a coalition government with everyone.
Okay.
So it doesn't exclude
certain parties.
So it means that if you have, I'm just not too sure about the numbers, but if you have a certain number of seats, then you are part of the ruling government, right? And so that's the option. I think it's the safer option for the ANC for sure. I don't know if it's the safer option for us as the people. The last time we had a government of national unity was in 1994, and that was really just to make sure that we have civil peace. We have peace. It wasn't about who won the election and who didn't. We've seen a government of national unity in Zimbabwe a couple of times. It's always ended up in a re-election about a year or two later. They're saying they are in talks. They've reached out to DA, PA, EFF, IFP, of course. We're hearing that there's a meeting coming up with MK, and we'll see. We'll sort of see how that goes. But I think we're still far here. You said the election is done. I don't think so. I don't think so.
Can we have hope, please? The elections are done.
But
I have a question there. Yeah, I have a question there. If we're going government of national unity, how is it different from what we've been having all these years? We've been having parliament. We've been having seats in parliament, and certain parties have been having certain number of seats in parliament. And there has been arguments. I mean, our parliament has been interesting in the past years with the EFF that brings life into the assembly, with the point of order. So I'm saying, how is that going to be different? If we say everybody's included, it's a government of national unity, is it still the same show, retitled, or is there a real difference between the government of national unity and what we have been having?
So, I mean, I think the difference is that, for example, the ANC cannot make a decision by itself.
Yes.
Whereas previously they could have made a decision by themselves.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Right? So when they had 2/3 majority, or even in this 2019
Yes.
election when they had about 52%,
Yeah.
they could make it. As the ANC, they could make a decision. We saw this with
Yeah.
Phala
Yes.
Phala.
Yeah.
We saw with how they dealt with Phala Phala,
Yeah.
that the ANC could outright make a decision
Yeah.
by themselves. Whereas now, they can't make a decision by themselves. Two, I would assume that there would have to be negotiations about who gets what ministry, who gets speaker, who gets...
okay.
Whereas before,
They could appoint.
they could appoint,
Yeah.
right? And of course, we make ourselves available from the various political parties based on the seats, but they could simply appoint.
Yeah.
What in terms of ministries and who gets what.
Yeah.
I think it's been interesting that the EFF, for example, has any coalition conversation that the EFF is having based on particular policy priorities.
Yes.
Abanye abantu are having the coalition conversations based on ukuthi sicela ukuba uspeaker.
Yeah.
So it's interesting the things that political parties are now bargaining.
Yeah.
I think more than anything else, this teaches us, or it's a lesson ukuthi, guys, and I've been part of conversations about this. Electoral reform is really, really important.
Okay.
Because what we've done with this vote and what we've done with this electoral system that we have is that we voted and we've handed over decision-making power to political parties. And now they get to then bargain and decide what it is that they are going to do with our power and with our representing us on our behalf for the next 5 years. And I think for me, that's part of the crisis that we must solve for.
Okay.
Like I said, I don't think the election is done. I think we need a government to sit so we know that the election is done. I'm a bit concerned that a government won't sit.
Oh, okay. All right. Noel.
Yes.
I would like to rather put you at the bottom.
Yeah.
From a point of view of being a citizen, or from a citizen point of view.
Yes.
Right. I mean, what Londo is saying, it has been bringing, I think, from different podcasts as well.
Yes.
And we've touched on this issue a couple of times.
Yes.
That we have literally given power. We vote once, and it's like we turn around and say, we voted, that's it, done. and it's like, but it's your country.
Yes.
How do we look at this issue from probably...
as the citizens?
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is that, working with communities, it's the one that even drove me to this kind of conversation, because I like it the way Usisa because at least kind of educate me with this Meganshan and what kind of conversations can we have, because the truth of the matter is that everyone says, yes, we voted, but even if we want to play part in whatever the change we voted for, how do I play part?
Yes.
I don't get to understand who's who after all within the parliament. And you see, when she says there needs to be a seat first, and for us to know what is Meganshan, them bargaining this for this with our power, it's just another conversation because of each Latina on the citizens that this is what we did, but when then you'd rather marry this one or sleep with this one. So so it's kind of interesting and very aggravating, if I could say, because if now that maybe let's say ANC does not take a decision on their own, right, they go to it maybe a collusion with another party. Does that mean the next part, if let's say I'm coming from a political party X, now that we have colluded with the ANC, do I attend conference with the ANC now when the decision has to happen? Those kind of conversations are happening. Those kind of conversations to say, we've been having different ideologies to say, but Nina and his party on this and this, and therefore that's why I trusted these people. We understand, but is this going to happen or not? So that's why within the communities, it's people are kind of waiting for a move. People are anticipating for something to happen, so that they're waiting to what move are we making. You understand?
Okay.
So that we know.
All right. Okay. No, that's good. After the break, let's get to the audience and hear what the audience feeling is about the matter.
Yes.
Thank you. Hi, welcome back. And as we said, we are going to go to the floor and hear from our guests for what's their feeling after voting. Can I have anyone on the floor? Ongasitshela nje ukuthi uvotile wena, awufisa uvota, what is your feeling about the government and what's your expectation moving forward?
Greetings everyone, greetings to listeners. Into kakhulu esidingayo kwi-government yethu after sivota, sidinga imisebenzi kwama-youth wethu as i-youth. Sidinga i-government yethu isibone njengabantu, isi-understande njengabantu abamnyama, ngoba mawungabheka as i-DA now ithi mayingena ku-government ifuna ukwehlisa i-NSFAS. How can we go to school while ama-parents wethu angasebenzi? Sizobhadala ngani igolo? And I'm so very much happy about the results of ANC because it's doing nothing in the parliament. It's just a chair with empty person. There's no anybody in the chair. So it's what I think it's important.
Okay.
Sanibona nonke.
Yebo.
Kahle ama-changes esifuna ukubabona nje. Ubona ukuthi sithole i-government ebusayo.
Okay.
Iletha ama-changes kubantu.
Okay.
Like small businesses.
Okay.
We've been voting for years, but there was no any changes.
Okay.
So okwamanje sicela nje kube noshintsho, just us motivate ngoba we are being demotivated every time we vote, and then into esiyivotelayo ingaveli.
Okay.
If two both fights, the grassroots. So Tina, at the lower level, we are the people who suffer most.
Yeah.
If I'm a leader,
Yeah, bayano.
And any into is Tina, we are always visible if we feel it's some elections. If it's some elections, as in I'm a small businesses. Our campaign, like e-bazaar shop. They are very much aware that there's illegal food, as police abantu, as we are last we are corner, as the trauma Pakistan.
Yeah.
And they've been promising that they will deal with it. Up until now, they're still dealing with it. Abo Okovetu, school ever takes some vegetable in my family. Go to town now, a business
Okay.
Why? Just because of you are my first priority.
Yeah.
My figure who supply your stock.
Yeah.
I'm going to get our stock. Not itself, Sawas with stock. No, but they are the first priority about to have fresh vegetables. So, Magna Vanjo Shinjo.
Yeah.
Government, you're going to let our empty promises.
Yeah, good.
Nobody says I would slightly tell me political party as you like horizons understand because they promise, but when they are supposed to deliver,
there's no delivery.
There's no delivery.
Yeah.
So
but when with your current situation, the way isimo singakhona kwamanje, when ngicabanga ukuthi yini okufanele ukuthi yenzeke lapha phezulu ukuthi lezi zinto okhuluma ngazo zikwazi kwenzeka lapha.
Yabona phezulu nje mawungabheka kulokhu kukhulunywa ngayo ukuthi especially ku-ANC kunamakhehla nezalukwazi egcwele lapha phezulu change ama-position from one minister position to another one.
Yes.
Makafeyila uphuma kuleyo ngena kuleya. Angena ngisho ne-experience yaleyo position.
Okay.
Just because of ulwile ngesikhathi sobandlululo babona ukuthi udeserve that position.
Yeah.
Which is not true.
Yeah.
I think abantu abasha parties like Rise Mzansi, there are young people there.
Mm.
You understand? With fresh minds.
Yeah.
You understand? I think those people bayabona ukuthi kwenzakalani on the ground.
Mm.
Sifuna uncedo kanjani on the ground.
Okay.
I think people like those ababancane yibo abantu abangakwazi uku-understanda isimo sale election. If you look at into ekhulunywayo kukhulunywa indaba zokuthi kumele siqashe i-youth from 35 years downwards.
Yeah.
To be honest, i-youth from 35 downwards ngeke amaintaine
Yeah.
imali ayitholayo emjayiveni. Mina ngiyikhehla ngisendlini mangithola imali ngiyakwazi ukuthi ngamaintaine
Abantwana.
abantwana.
Okay.
So mathiwa anguthola umsebenzi kuzoyenzakalani endlini.
All right.
350 akusini next.
Point taken. Point taken. The last person, the gentleman at the back. Bekaphakamisa isandla. Masizo wena, my brother.
Sanibona,
Yebo.
njani? Njengoba njengoba ngivotile bengifuna u-change ukuthi from emisebenzini noma sithi siyamaketha masifika siya ama-CV wethu wakhiphela ngaphandle then bafaka ama-foreign because yibo abantu ebasibulelela i-South Africa.
Okay.
Ingoba into eyenza ukuthi ibe corrupt is because of ukuthi in those border gators there are ANC who are running that border gators and there are people who are taking primaries that side and there are those people who are making them to come here and then they're doing nothing. We're not going to work for 40 rand per day in South Africa, but the people of foreigners, they are working there. That is the one that they are killing us. So we need the government to change, to give us the things, to give us the job, free education, and free our land, free service delivery. Thank you.
All right. Nyabo. Thank you very much. Well, we had the people's views and what they have stated. But before I get to the main question that I would want to get to, I want to go back to something that you said before we went for a break. When you stated that at the current stage, we don't have a government. The votes are not done yet. The elections are not done yet. Yes. What do you mean? Can you probably explain that?
So, the elections are a long process. They don't end on voting day.
Okay.
You still have counting, results are announced,
Yeah.
then cabinet must sit, then you have a government, you elect
Yeah.
a president, you elect speaker, whatever. Or rather you elect a president and you
Yeah.
appoint other
Other-
members of parliament. And so until all of that is done, your election process is not done.
Okay.
So voting is done.
It's part of the election.
Yes, so elections are a process.
Yeah.
Voting is done. Voting, counting of votes is done. But we have not constituted a government. So we must constitute a government, must elect a president, and then we will know what I can.
Yeah.
Even then, I think we must. I'm hoping that it's not going to happen, and I'm hoping that it's unlikely that we have to have a re-election. In the result that abantu abavumelani,
There is a possibility.
there is a possibility to go for a re-election, right? But I'm hoping Muguti, we don't get to that point. I'm
Okay.
hoping that we get.
No.
get
It's a good thing so that we can understand the whole process. Because for us, when we say elections, we're thinking once I've voted, that's it. It's done. There's been an announcement. The counting has been done, and an announcement. We're thinking, there, we know now. ANC is at 49 point something, and we are good.
Yeah.
But that's not it. There's
Not
still
solid.
needs to declare
Yeah.
the sitting and government, the sitting cabinet and the government to say, okay, this is the government, and it's this declared that, well, like we said, the government of national unity. But now, having cleared that, my question is to this. We heard what the people are saying. We get the frustration, and what they voted for and what they want. And my question would be, what happens probably firstly on the second part of what you've just explained. What's the process? What needs to happen in government now?
Okay, so I mean now we are within the 14 days where a government needs to be constituted. By the end of the 14 days, ideally we'll have a government that will sit.
Yeah.
I think it's in all our interest, in all our best interests, including political parties themselves, that we have stability after this election. It's just asikho isidingo sokuthi we go into an unstable kind of a situation. That being said, I don't know that we'll have that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It is my hope, it is my desire ukuthi yonke into ibe right after these 14 days. But I think for me, what the more important conversation, and I think what you were saying about we vote and it's done, is part of the crisis.
Yes.
You can't vote and it's done. Because then if you are voting and it's done, then it means you as a citizen are not playing your role in holding government accountable. So once a government is constituted, owethu sonke, whether we like the government or not, right? So once tiwa okay ke sesine government of national unity, nabo abantu basiphethe ngale ndlela.
Yeah.
Lokho kwethu sonke.
Yeah.
It affects all of us. We are responsible for it. They are responsible for all of us, right? And so you can't have a situation where we just say, "Ay, votile, it is what it is." You can't have that situation. And so I think it's important ukuthi sifundisane ukuthi senze njani to hold government accountable once it has been constituted. So I think fanele sicabange nanokuthi how do smaller political parties get together so that they can have influence? Ezinye izinto don't need us to agree every day.
Yeah.
We agree on small businesses, for example. Ubaba mentioned small businesses. We agree on the approach on small businesses. So why is it ukuthi masifike eParliament mina nawe singahlangani siqhube into yama small businesses
And make sure that it happens.
right? So I mean, I think those are the things that we need to figure out. I was speaking to someone the other day. Wathi, hey, gazi kungenzakalani? So ANC total 40%. Kusho 60% is spread across other political parties. Kungenzakalani masingahlanganisa lo 60%?
Yes.
What does that look like?
Yeah.
The problem is that, or at least mina ngokubona kwami, inkinga ukuthi sibhizi sifuna ukushayana sodwa. And you know, some of the things esixabana ngazo noma isilwa ngazo are valid and they are fair. But angazi man, maybe we must have that conversation. What does it look like if we get that 60% to get together?
Yeah.
I think the crisis will be ukuthi izophathwa ubani leyo 60%.
Now, I think the main question is what is stopping this 50% coming together? If we approach it from that point, to say, guys, but you made a point that...
well, I mean, sorry, it's politics, right? It's politics and policies and perspective. It's difficult to have a situation where the DA and the EFF are in one camp because they are completely opposite in terms of policy and political priorities. They are just in complete different fields or spaces, right?
Okay.
So if you look at the DA versus the UDM, for example, or ACDP, I don't know, you can name all the political parties. So, I think for
me, if and I hate to put it this way, if I look at the black parties, that's taking one of the other parties out, and I'm saying, if they are interested people, surely they must be having similarities somewhere that they can say, okay, we are focusing more on economic development, and then well focused there, and anyone who has an interest in this economic development, let's rally around and say, we are collectively trying to do this.
No, but it's important. It's important to think about the politics. Yes, you and I agree about economic development. But we don't agree about how to. We don't agree.
Then
about the how.
It should be easier for us to sit, even if it takes us a month, to say we don't agree about the how. But let's sit down and look. It's a puzzle to me to say why can't we? if our interest, because I'm approaching it from that point, if our interest is the people, that should be, because of our interest is the people, is not us. And because I'm thinking that every time you have a problem with getting together with someone for the sake of the people, then the people are not a priority.
Right? And maybe maybe we are not the priority, right? And so we must then question ourselves, who are these people that we vote for who don't prioritize us? Why is prioritize?
Exactly. Okay.
So inzima.
Taking it from what Londiwe have said, I want to ask you a question, but from a statement that you didn't say. Londiwe said something that pushed me to a point of saying, when people campaign,
Yes.
there's a lot of money that put into it.
Yes.
There's a lot of energy that is put into it.
Yes.
Can we get the same energy probably after elections? I mean, people know people in the canvas.
Yeah.
That I'm so and so, and I can come to your house. And why can't we be getting the same energy probably after the elections? People who are responsible for constituencies in areas.
Yes.
Are they that active after the elections in making sure that people now are educated on what their responsibilities are?
Yes. It is possible, and it's supposed to happen, but unfortunately, akwenzeki. After all, it's the responsibility of maybe I would say within the political parties themselves. You understand? Like in Jongoba Ibegile Usisuti, no, they are so maybe completely different. If I could make point, the party A and party B, but if party A says Tina, this is our approach, and the song is Savumelan. That's why conferences happen. That's why those things happen inside a party, the democracy of the organization themselves. You understand? So that's why they challenge their ideologies to say this is the approach that we are going with, so that mabapuma bonke sebati na indlela yethu isibekayo sithina iparty thizeni. You understand? So now it is the same energy that they should give out to the communities, but akwenzeki because I think we are going to assist. I think Melissa we are not the priorities because of that. That's definitely the case.
Yeah, based on that,
Yes.
there's a saying. They say if Muhammad cannot go to the mountain should go to Muhammad. And I'm wondering, can the people be mobilized?
Yes.
To say, you must know who's responsible.
Yes, they can.
And not just know, because of I think when we say people should know, now we want to associate with you and be like, I know people,
Yeah.
And if I need things done, but where people can just go and say, this is the person, and these are the responsibilities of the person.
Yes.
Is it possible? And
Yes.
I'm talking to you from We Are the People. Is it possible to educate and mobilize people to a position of saying, now we know how systems work, and now we know what we are capable of?
Yes.
Maybe I'm using the wrong way. Now we know what is possible, and who is responsible of making things that makes the port to actually happen.
I like that we no, remember mostly our journey is to getting the communities more empowered. You understand, in such a way that Bawas Guzmela more communities. You understand, once Bawas Guzmela, we are the people. Bawas Guzmela Tina Singabantu straight. Then it's easier for such to say we understand that this policy works this way, and that we're taking the approach. You understand? But if communities are not activated, like for example, like right now we're having such a conversation, but I don't believe it's the same conversation we're having. It's the same conversation within maybe the street corners of the communities themselves. You understand? You sure the conversations that are there are conversations of Oramaposo, Shuguti Arasugo, Riasuga, you understand about well, siphelele lapho. You understand that asiseko on okay, now that we have voted, how do we partake? How do we play part in this? Njengoba usisi asho ukuthi akudingeki ukuthi kahle kahle i-re-election is yenze. Mina I feel like it should, Because let me tell you why. Let me tell you why.
Okay, yeah, give me your 2
Let me
cents.
tell you why. It's because at least communities are going to be empowered. You understand?
Yeah.
Sizokwazi ukuthi why kahle kwenzakala ngakhona. Why do you have to even vote? Now you have to educate people. This is the case. Do you understand?
Yeah.
This is the case. We are in this in this platform or in this phase as a country whereby we can't all, maybe the majority can't happen.
Yeah.
Then when we are in a state where a majority can't happen, like that means sekunzi. We understand.
Okay.
Now within the communities, them to understand that part, this conversation to happen, we understand.
Okay.
It has to lead to that.
Right.
But after, if it doesn't, we are going to always depend on political parties coming to us. We understand.
Yeah.
And now it's going to be an unfortunate situation. Like we are the people, that community is not empowered. Do you understand?
But I doubt if a lot of political parties will agree with you on that one. Well, I have a question, Futhi. Mfunuka on the floor. And I would want to ask, how many of you, unless by showing of hands, or somebody can just grab a microphone and ask Jack, who actually know constituency office?
Constituency.
Yeah, but
Member of Parliament.
on their area, and then if they have ever engaged and worked with their office, then, and regardless whether you know the MP on that office or not, bakhona bayazi. No. The constituency office. Yeah.
The only thing esiyaziyo you must go to vote.
Yeah.
Siqala nje ngokuyizwa manje. The only thing esiyaziyo you must go to vote. Sazi ukuthi ayinali ayikhansela mawufuna ngiyekhansela.
Okay.
That's the only person esimaziyo you must go to vote.
Yeah.
We have never been educated ukuthi these are your rights. Kumele uyekubani mawufuna lokho.
Yeah.
You understand?
Kune office elithize ongalitshela ukuthi thina endaweni yethu sifuna into ethize ungenza kanjani.
Exactly. And said lapha senza sicela into kungamela ngisicela ukukhansela sicela ukukhansela.
Okay. Yeah.
So nabo bazosicambela amanga. Understand? It's better ungitshela iqiniso manje ngizokuhlunga manje.
Yeah.
Kunokuthi ungicambela amanga then ngizokuhlunga later.
Yeah.
Ngoba sekudabu ngokuthini
Iyazwakala. Anyone else? Because I think this tells a sad story.
Yes.
Of what we are talking about. That
Yes.
people vote and they think when they've made that cross, that's the end of all things. They are waiting for the next 5 years.
Yeah, but so that's not a crisis of the people, I don't think, or at least
okay.
mhlambe angazi ukuthi ngiyibeke kanjani. For me, that sounds like a crisis of representative democracy as a concept. Right in this country, sisebenzisa representative democracy.
Yeah.
Ukuthi wena uyahamba uyongimela.
Yes.
Or as iqembu leli liyahamba liyongimela.
Okay.
That kind of democracy creates a situation where I'm like, hey dude, go ahead and do
Yeah.
it. Mina ngizobe ngiqhubeka la nempilo yami ngibe ngibona ukuthi
Yeah.
ngenza kanjani.
Yes.
And unfortunately, because sithema siya ngokuya izinto zakwangazathi ziba ngcono, of course izinto zingcono compared to apartheid.
Yeah.
Because we had a steady level of development, we all developed a trust in government ukuthi hey for sure bazokwenza kahle, so let's vote nje for sure bazokwenza okufanele bakwenze. The problem is when we then realize ukuthi ayabasenzi ngendlela esibathume ngayo, bese siyathula, noma bese sihlala phansi, noma bese siyayeka ukuvota.
Yeah.
One of my major headaches, into nje engiphatha kabi, particularly with this election, is how much the voter turnout decreased.
Okay.
I-voter turnout yango 2019 yayi 66%, i-voter turnout yakulo nyaka 58% bafethu. Only
Is it-
58% of the people who registered to vote voted in this election.
Yes.
That's a crisis.
It is.
And for me, more than Uguti, so let's say, Noel is correct and we have a re-election in 5 weeks' time or however long,
Yeah.
if only 58% of the people are going to show up anyway,
Yeah.
What-
I hear you.
you need a voter turnout to be high in
Yes.
order to have specific results.
Yes.
Right? So for me, one of my priorities kulo msebenzi esiwenzayo as we go forward
Yes.
is we need to increase the voter turnout.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do we know how many people actually registered to vote?
27.7 million.
27.7 million. What's the percentage to the country population? Around 40%?
I have no idea, but I know Ubuti 40 million people are eligible to vote.
Okay, registered.
No,
Or just legible.
27 million are registered,
Or
40
27
million
All
are
right.
eligible. So there's a huge chunk of the population that isn't registering to vote.
To vote.
But
On
okay,
top of that, on
okay,
the 27, only 58%.
okay, fine. You have this chunk of people who are not registering to vote. Mhlambe we can say, hey, okay, siya give up akubona."
Yes.
We shouldn't, but
Yeah.
okay, let's agree that that's the situation.
Yes.
But then out of the people who are registered to vote, we're not showing up to the polls.
Yes.
And I cannot stress enough how much in this country kubalulekile to show up for voting. It's not a waste of time. It's not. And the problem is that if you think about your vote as an individual thing,
Yes.
you're obviously not going to make a change.
Yeah.
My one vote,
Yeah.
if I think about it as my one vote,
Yeah.
obviously there's no change. But if I think about my vote as part of this collective,
Yes.
ukuthi sonke sithe sizovota kanje,
Yeah.
noma sizovota kanje, and if I grow this collective of people, then we start to make a change. Voting is a group project.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
a collective project, Bafethu. And so I think for me, the crisis about post-election, this particular election ka-24, one is about i-turnout. Fanele sixoxe nje sihlale phansi njengomphakathi ukuthi sokwenza njani ukuthi i-turnout next time around ibe phezulu. Two, it's about saying athina ama-access point ahulumeni during in between elections.
Yeah.
So Ubaba
Yes,
was talking
yes.
about amakhansela. That's
Yeah.
one access point. Meeting IDP in your community
That's
are
another-
open.
yes.
They are not closed meetings between 5 councillors. They are not. You are allowed to go there and say, okay, yeah, meeting bafethu, sithini IDP, sithini ngokuthi municipality yenzani. Those things are open. Ne?
Yes.
Awukho umthetho in this country that is supposed to be passed abantu bengawuzwanga.
Yes.
Abantu bengabuzwanga ukuthi ni right yini ngalomthetho lo. So all the bills that umongameli passed just that week of elections,
Yeah.
all of those elections,
bills.
all of those bills and all of those laws have gone to public for public
Yeah.
response and
Yeah.
representation. So we need to figure out where are these things happening.
Yeah.
If kukuthi wena
Ubani.
ubungakaze uzwe nge-NHI until the president announces
I
it.
announce.
Yindaba.
Yeah.
Yindaba. Kusho ukuthi majority, and if that the majority of the people are saying they've never heard about this thing until it gets to parliament or until it gets to the president, then there's a crisis. Yokuthi
There's
abantu
something wrong in the system.
hey, so we need to figure out ukuthi oh okay, zenziwa nini lezi imbizo zabo zale mthetho le?
Ay.
Zenziwa nini
And
siye?
kanjani?
Zenziwa nini siye?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The point is that fanele siye.
Yeah.
Asekho.
In the same way that the point about voting is that fanele siye.
Yes.
For me, non-participation in it, and I get why people are not participating. I get ukuthi sikhathele bafethu, I get it. And I get ukuthi sometimes non-participation is a protest.
Yeah.
Yes.
But i-protest yethu phela ibe ne-impact.
Yeah.
We must protest in a strategic way that is impactful. Non-participation, for me, angiyiboni impact yayo.
Yeah. I usually say on that subject and participation ukuthi umuntu I understand njengoba usho ukuthi as an individual ucabanga ukuthi awenzi umehluko but collectively senze umehluko ukuthi people should actually know ukuthi if only 100 people can vote
That's
The whole
government.
country, 68 million,
That
will
is
be
the
directed
government.
by the decision of 100 people.
Imagine.
Yep.
So if the 100 people can say, Tina, see 100 across the country, so voter and it's decided what is votela Itaha party. Then Itaha party obusa. Who vote abantu abayi 100. Babuzele abantu abayi 68 million to say
Imagine.
the 100 has decided
Imagine.
on your behalf because of when uye wahlala phan ekhaya what I'm vote. And ungavote kwakho kwakwenza ukuthi somebody that you don't even like
Hey,
started holding power.
hey.
So yeah, that's it. Noel, anything probably to say in this issue, constitutions and public participation? I don't know if political parties, because that's my concern. Do political parties teach people what we are discussing here, or has it been shifted
Let me put
to
it this way.
the non-profit organization
Yes,
to be doing that?
Yes. Let me put it this way.
Because that's a sad story.
That's really a sad story. Let me put it this way. There was never going to be a need for an organization, think it an NPO, if
Yeah.
you can't sell umsebenzi. Point number one. There was never going to be a need for a political party to campaign, I understand, for votes going to people if this was happening. Because of Kuti Simbona every day and we are discussing these things. Do you
Yeah.
understand? So now, why do I need to campaign?
Yeah.
You understand? Why do I
Because I know your work.
Exactly.
So I'll just vote for
Do
you
understand
or your
that?
organization.
So it is for the method that we still need to campaign and for the method that asimazi ukuthi ubani slate lona uzohamba nobani. Trust me. it doesn't
Powerful
happen.
point there. Powerful point there. Well, I don't know. Do you have a parting shot? I'm giving you 2 minutes.
2 minutes. I'll take 30 seconds. We owe each other, as the people of this country, we owe each other
Yes.
a functioning democracy
Yes.
and a
Yeah.
government.
Yes.
It's up to us. Ayekho futhi omunye uzosenza
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I hear you. What?
I think it's let's make a group project to work out of it.
Okay.
Thank you. We very this is a political things, elections, the group project. Yes, mawicabanga uyedwa. Trust me, it might not make a drop in an ocean, but with a group, trust me, mawicabanga ukuthi okay, even though mina I understand it that much, but it's ngoba ngimzwile uSisi Londiwe.
Yeah.
It's ngibona. Do you understand? At
Yeah.
least like partake in such conversation. At least let's have conversation. If you don't have hope, let's have conversation to those who have hope to say, but with like understanding, you understand, and
Yeah.
participate into this thing. Like try visit those meetings that we speak about, and of course maybe if you don't have such direction, yeah, contact us, or I don't know, like become active. You understand?
Alright.
So that why at least we get somewhere to the functioning democracy.
All right.
You know.
Taking it from Sislondi's words, we owe each other. Because I want to make a challenge. I don't know if we can make that. I want to make a challenge. I want to make a challenge to even the viewers, people
Yes.
who are owning organizations that are concerned about development in our areas. It could be any area. To say, can we come together and try to do something, but with a target? Then we can probably have this talk again. Maybe there will be other people here.
Yes.
3 months from now.
Yes.
And we can give a report of saying, this is what we are doing in our communities. And since the election to now,
Yes.
this is how we have trained people about these matters.
Yes.
And this is the motion that we are getting. Is that
Yes.
possible?
Yes.
Of course it is, yeah.
It is.
Yeah. So can we kind of engage? I'm going to hold you accountable on that. You can hold me accountable on that.
Yes.
So I'm saying I'm making a call, and I'm actually putting a link. I'm not saying go and call me on this number or anything else. But I'm saying at the bottom of this video on description, we are going to put a link where people can we'll make a page or something where we can go there and say, I'm committing myself. This is me. This is my organization. This is what we are doing. And let's come together and see what we can do for the people of this country. We owe it to each other to make this country functional. From me, Emmanuel Muthala, Sislondiwe, Noel, and my producer, Kebolo Sukuna, and the new guy. I didn't get the new guy's name.
Mr. Paul.
Mr. Paul is doing some awesome work.
Yes.
And Mr. Paul and our audience, our beautiful, lovely audience, thank you very much. And let's see each other in the next one. Cheers.
Thank you.